Good morning. Please join me in Gasho. The teachings and practices taught by the Buddhas outnumber even particles of sand. The opportunities and conditions for beings for encountering them differ according to their hearts and minds. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. So once again, good morning. As we enter the end of our year, the days are getting darker, and many of us get the itch to snuggle up and get lost in a good book. So I thought it might be a good time to talk about the opening of our new temple library. Like many things here at 1427 Main Street, our library has been closed for 2 years. But it sounds like we can expect this to change early next year. Before setting up this space, I thought we might take a moment to ask ourselves if a new library is even necessary, and if so, why? So as the chair of the library committee, I came up with a few topics that I hope will help us to answer this question. Firstly, why are books an important part of the practice of Buddhism? And secondly, is it significant to have physical books, or could we simply have a virtual library? And last, what kind of library should it be? Let's start with the first question, which is why do books play such an important role in Buddhism? The answer lies in the type of religion that Buddhism is. There are two main forms that religion takes in our world. One form is religions of belief, and the other is religions of path. Religions of belief are fairly straightforward. They require the practitioner to believe in or have faith in a god or gods. Christianity is an example of a religion of belief. Belief that Jesus Christ is a God is the basis for leading a Christian life. Buddhism, on the other hand, is a religion of path. We are not required to believe in a God or gods. We attain liberation by learning and living the Dharma. This is done by either reading or listening to talks on the sutras. Whereas Christians just have one book that they read, we have hundreds of sutras, and each one provides a slightly different path to awakening. Our job is to make a decision on which path to follow and which book to read. Therefore, it is the accumulation of wisdom, not belief, that is our ultimate goal. Buddhist wisdom is contained in sutras, which are written records of the Buddha's original talks. These sutras are translated to us through commentaries, which can take many forms. For example, a Dharma talk, a seminar, a gatha, or a chant. But the beginning point of Buddhist practice is always found in a book. The next question is why it's important to save paper books and store them in our library. After all, it's 2025, and we have ways to store this information virtually. It is much more quick and efficient to find what we need in a searchable PDF. This is true, but I would make the argument that a PDF is not the same as a book. I believe that we read differently when we read online, or at least I do. I didn't notice it at first, but now that I'm watching myself, I find that when I'm reading a paper book, my eyes wander around the page. I go back and forth, rereading sections, mulling over them, and then I move on. I do not do this when I'm reading a PDF. When I read on a screen, I'm consuming the material, skimming over the page and then eagerly pressing the forward arrow to get to the next page. In fact, skimming seems to become an art form that we have all mastered. Paper books have been very much on my mind lately, especially with so much talk about artificial intelligence. I recently reread Fahrenheit 451, which, for those of you who don't know it, is a science fiction book written in the 1950s about a futuristic society where firefighters start fires instead of putting them out. Their main job is to burn and destroy books which start to burn at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. In this book, Ray Bradbury says, and I'm loosely paraphrasing here, this is not an exact quote, "Do you know why books are so important? Because they have quality. A book has pores, it has features. The more pores, the more truthfully recorded details of life you can get on a sheet of paper. Books are hated and feared because they show the pores in the face of life. Comfortable people want only wax moon faces, poreless, hairless, expressionless. We are living in a time when flowers are trying to live on flowers instead of growing in good rain and in black soil." What he is trying to tell us is that books have value because they are not perfect. They have pores because they come from the earth. They are not sleek or efficient or airbrushed. They are not ChatGPT-ified or artificial. A book is a thing that we hold in our hand. It's a tactile experience. We throw it in our backpack and turn over the pages to mark our place. We highlight, underline, and make notes in the margins. Books get old and crinkly, and they have a smell. There's a history to them, and their presence records the passage of time. Books are also one of the rare things that people share. All sorts of people, old people, young people, poor people, rich people. Libraries like the one in our Betsuin are places where we go to share books. Books are not a single-use commodity. They can be read over and over again countless times by countless people, each reacting in different ways to the words written on the paper. I could go on, but I want to get to the third question of whether it makes sense to store these physical books in our library. Over the years, I have heard many people ask, and rightly so, whether it makes sense to devote so much of our space on books that no one ever reads. After all, there's a big difference between admiring a book and actually opening it and reading it. I would honestly say that almost all of the books in our old library were woefully unread. I think that there are probably several issues at play here. One of them is that it's not easy nowadays to focus on a book, especially a complex Buddhist text that is hard to understand. In this day and age, when we're curious about something, we simply consult the little device that we hold in our hands, and it just takes a second. It even anticipates our question now before we finish typing. The problem is that for every question, we get but the one answer. And as I mentioned earlier, Buddhists have hundreds of sutras, and each one provides a slightly different path to awakening. If we are all receiving the same pre-programmed answer based on an internet scrub, how will we know which path is the right one for us as individuals to follow? We need to fight back. We need to reoccupy our minds. We need to resist the brain fog, and we need to open books. This will be a challenge for all of us, myself very much included. But I do believe that there are ways that our library can help make this easier. For example, I believe that if we actually knew what was inside the books in our Betsuin library, we might be more compelled to read them. My hope is that the library committee and the book study group will find ways to make these texts come alive and integrate them into what we do each week. We have lots of ideas, like building a nice, comfortable children's area, and maybe start incorporating short book reviews in our temple services or Dharma exchange. I'd also like to create lists of recommended reading for new visitors or people who are interested in Japanese American history or art or culture. The choices are endless. But we can't do this alone, and we would love your input. Since we are starting anew, we can adjust our areas of focus to things that the Sangha can really sink their teeth into. So my call out to you is to bring your ideas and your creativity, and the library committee will do our best to find ways to bring them to life. I'll end with a quote again. Please join me in Gasho. The teachings and practices taught by the Buddhas outnumber even particles of sand. The opportunities and conditions for beings for encountering them differ according to our hearts and minds. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu.